Welcome to the Enlighten Up podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Enlighten Up podcast. I'm so excited you're here, and I want to say welcome to our new listeners. We are growing and expanding, and I am so excited to have you here with me. If you've missed some of the new additions that I brought to the show, definitely check them out. We are doing a live call-in show now every other Thursday, and I've offered a new spin on things where I am actually diving into one of my very guilty pleasures of reality TV and interpreting the episodes and the characters from a very spiritual perspective. And we're going to look at healing journeys, spiritual growth from using the canvas of reality TV. It's completely different. It's totally fun. And it really gives us something to look at on what's actually happening in our world and where consciousness is actually evolving. So it's really fun. If you've missed it, check them out, because from so far, from you guys who have listened, you're loving it and you're loving the fresh perspective. But today I am so excited to introduce you to a brand new guest to the show. Her name is Susan Grau, and she's an internationally celebrated celebrity intuitive medium. She's an author, soul healer, and speaker. She has a wide range of talents on her list, and she is also a hypnotherapist specialized in past life regression, a respected professional teacher of the metaphysical arts, and an honorary member of the Healing Touch Professional Association. She specializes in grief therapy, guiding people to healing and recovery. She has an amazing upcoming book that will be released July 16th, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, which we're going to get into, and is being published by Hay House, and it is a deep dive into the soul's journey, offering insights into healing from grief and the afterlife. And that is now available for pre-order. So I'm going to leave links for that. But before we get into all of that, Susan, welcome to the show. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
It's such a pleasure. I've had a few mediums on the show already, but I'm very curious to hear about your experience and how you got into it. But before we even dive into like the story, I kind of want to jump all the way to maybe even the future with you. You and I were just chatting about something that's been recently coming through for you. You're writing another book, which I got to tell you, I totally admire anyone who writes books. I wrote one myself, and it is a process. It is something that is it. Do you find that the writing process for you opens you up even more than just what you're getting downloaded with and what you're learning? But when you write it out, like it almost unpacks itself even more in how you understand it?
Absolutely. Somebody asked me, Susan, was this a labor of love? And I said, oh no, it was a deep dive into my pain, my dark soul, the dark night there, the having to look at truth even further than I already had. And then, of course, loving the process of helping others heal through my book, but getting in contact with spirit and really looking at all angles. I call it the Rubik's Cube. I'm turning it every single way, trying to make sure that I've got it going the right way. And so it's a very long, arduous process when you're writing a book. It's not just you write a book and it's done. You go through edit after edit after edit after edit. And you are working constantly at trying to get the words out and across that people understand, because we speak and we write, and and all the other things we do as we understand things. So having to relay it outward is not easy.
No, I know. It was for for me when I was writing my book, I started to understand the depth of my pain on a whole new level, but
Mhm.
also the growth that was available to me, you know?
Yes.
And so I think it's one of those things where everyone should write a book, you know, even if they never publish it, you know, just write it for yourself. And it doesn't have to be like hundreds of pages long, but there's something really healing in the process of really writing the story out and then the process of what that actually means for you, because it's like you're taking it out of the mental space and you're bringing it into this physical reality on form, on, well, I want to say paper, but you know, these days it's a laptop. But it really does bring the healing process to a completely different level.
Absolutely. You know, when I do healing work, which of course is my forte, I have my clients write, 0 to 3, every memory, 3 to 5, every memory, and so on. And they find that they jump around and they have to arrow because something else comes up and then something else comes up. But what happens is it becomes very cathartic for them and they're able to release a lot of memory or pain that they've been holding on to that they weren't even aware of. And
Can we just talk about something what you just said right there? I
yes.
literally just released a video about how the time, um you know, we understand time, there's a past, a present, a future, but we also understand time as a construct that creates this whole matrix, this reality that keeps us kind of in a boxed idea of like what this is. But when
Mhm.
you kind of go past time and understand that it doesn't exist and it does exist, I feel like, you know, there is time because we use it here, but it doesn't because it's all enmeshed, it's here and now and everywhere. And when there is this idea that nothing moves linearly in the universe. A universal law is that nothing moves linearly, like in a straight line. It moves in waves, it moves in circulars, like cycles. And so when you get someone to write something and they want to go, oh, but I had to jump here and I had to jump there, it's actually the natural rhythm of the universe and how we're
Yes.
guided to do things. And so people should feel really good about like maybe not going in a sequential way, but willing to be breaking that, because I feel that's one of our programs in this reality.
Yes. And time is the only thing that is actually linear. It's the
Hmm.
experience of time that is not.
Yes, yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
So, because we created time here, right? Dot,
Hmm.
the clock ticks. So
Hmm.
it does become linear for us when we think of it that way. So if we use the word time, yes, but the experience of it is not. And so we're
No.
in and it's like a roller coaster. We're here, we're there, we're here, we're there. And then something happens. We pull from the past and pull it forward. When people talk to me about, I always talk about ego, self esteem, and self respect. And, ego is needed to protect ourselves from the outside world. We don't want to be hit by the car. We're going to jump out of the way. Our ego says, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get in the way of the vehicle or whatever it is. And ego is fear based. So we use it a lot in fear. And then we have self esteem, which is, at best moving constantly. It's like a roller coaster. Today I feel good, today I don't. Today I know I'm okay, but I'm feeling a little off and so on. So it does really connect to our feelings quite deeply. And then there's self-respect. There's the time difference. I go back in time. I find the history of what I respected about myself. I pull that forward and then I can stand on solid ground that day. So, I deal with that on a daily basis. If I wake up and I'm feeling, I didn't get enough sleep, whatever's going on with me, when I go to that self-respect place, I can say, okay, Susan, let's pull that forward and let's live in that moment. Let's
Mm.
feel that for myself instead of going to ego, which is my fear base. So for me, time is only valuable in the experience of it, if that made sense.
Yeah. Well, and also when we talk about this idea of time and we'll kind of we'll use this as a nice little segue into what you're writing about right now on soul wounds, is that when we're in order for us to maximize how we experience the now, we do have to go into the past to shift, you know, what we experienced. And look at it from new lenses and work with it in a completely new way. Like with clients, I will work with them with their inner child, and we can literally go back in time, so to speak, to that moment and shift what happened and change the way the narrative, so to speak, so that the mind has a different experience to anchor into. And so we are using the past, like you said, the past and the now are simultaneously working together. And so when it comes to soul wounds and healing, what downloads are you getting right now? Because they're a little unconventional to what most people might think. And I'm in alignment. You and I kind of discussed this, and I completely agree with you. But share with the audience what you've been like a little teaser on what's going to be coming in your next book down the road. But soul wounds, it's very interesting.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Can you hear my dogs barking?
Oh yeah, but don't worry about it.
Well, let me just, can I pop them into the room? Do you
Sure,
mind?
no, yeah, go
It's very
ahead.
distracting for me.
Absolutely.
We can
Yeah.
break, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can
yeah,
break
yeah.
the,
You
okay.
go ahead. So, I actually am not surprised that your animals wanted to be in the room. This happens a lot. There's the cats want to come in, dogs want to come in. It's like, no, we actually like the energy of this conversation. We want to be part of it.
Absolutely. Especially my doodle. My doodle is very spiritual.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you were asking about soul wounds, so
yeah.
let me dive into that a little bit. I'm writing a new book, and it's about soul wounds. And I was, really getting into it, and I heard from the spirit world, Susan, there are no soul wounds, and I was stunned. And I thought I was going to call it soul wounds. And they were really animate about it. So I decided to, meditate and find out what they were trying to say to me. And they made it really clear to me that our wounds are never in our soul. Our soul is pure, and it is a vine to the spirit world. If you think of a vine and all the lines inside of it, like if you were to take a leaf and put it up in the air, you would see all the vines in the leaf, right? But you only see the leaf itself when you're looking at it straight up and personal. Right. And it's kind of that way with the soul. It has all these blood supplies or these vines to the spirit world. And so it is pure, and it's there to help us heal. And that's its purpose, is to shine, help us heal, help us know, what we need to do differently. It's there for every positive reason that spirit can give us to walk through this journey. And as they were telling me this, I was questioning because, soul wounds is a big buzzword right now. And I was confused by everything, but I decided just to keep listening. So every time I would meditate, they'd say more to me. And what they said to me is if you were wounded in your soul, you'd have nowhere to go if you needed healing. And if the person you were going to for help had soul wounds, they'd have nowhere to go. So you can have a wounded heart, broken heart. You have distorted thinking because of the life we live and the baggage we carry. And the breath of life, which I call spirit, can be harmed. You know how they say when they're talking about children that are really like high maintenance, break their spirit and you'll be okay, or an animal, and that's the worst thing. But nonetheless, they say things like that. Well, we can break a spirit by what we do to them or what we say to them throughout their journey.
Break a heart,
And
break a mind, break a bone.
yes, yes, but not the soul.
Yeah. I
And I
agree
was
with
just,
you. I agree with that. It makes sense. And you and I were chatting about this earlier because I believe that um we are all particles of source energy of God, and our soul is, and our soul is coming to experience. It's an extent. We are an extension, right? A part of, and so it would make sense that if we are a part of source, which is pure and always whole, that there's no way that could be harmed.
right, right. I know that, throughout all of our journeys, we have a lot of painful things that occur. And I've always wondered, what is it that's stepping inside of me that I'm healing this? Because I don't go to victimization. I always go to, how can I heal this? What can I do different? And I ask Spirit, what is with the pain that you give us? Because, we are allowed to have a lot of pain on this journey. And they said to me, pain is their greatest motivator for healing. When you're in pain, you're uncomfortable. So that is why we allow this to happen, because as you grow through the pain, so your soul expands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, it would be nice to live in the inverse reality where pain was the comfort zone and happiness was the
Why, yeah, that would be nice,
yeah.
except then we'd be suffering and happiness somehow,
I'd be like,
somehow.
oh, I want to grow all the time. Grow, grow.
Yeah, yeah. But it is true. Pain has always been my greatest motivator for change. So my soul is not in pain, but my heart and my head can be very deeply in pain.
Yeah. And I think, well, this will also transition us into this idea because you do mediumship. You speak to souls that have passed on. And I believe that, when we go to the other side, you don't experience all of the stuff that we've experienced in this human existence, right? And
Hmm.
so it is all love. You get that reconnection to source, so you get to experience yourself as that soul, that particle of source that is an extension and always connected. And um and that I feel is so important for understanding that what we're learning. I believe that source wants us to choose and learn through our own desires of whatever it is that we're
Hmm.
choosing in this. It's not what I believe source wants us to do, but gives us the free will to experience through our own choices of what it is we're going to learn. And that helps source understand and expand even more. And so I don't know, that's the way I look at it. But
Oh,
you
it's
know,
very true. Very
you
true.
you do a lot of work with souls that have passed on. So and also their communication with those who are still alive in these human forms in our bodies. You, before you got into this work, you had a near death experience as a child.
Mhm.
Um, what happened there, and how did that really change the trajectory of your life?
I don't know what my life would have been, so I don't even know if it changed the trajectory because I have no idea what it would have been without it. I only know what it is with it, but I can tell you that what happened to me was that I was playing with some boys and they said if I got in the freezer and got popsicles for them, the freezer was in the garage and it was unplugged. But at 4.5, I didn't recognize you had to have a freezer plugged in for popsicles. So I climbed up in the freezer. They closed the freezer door. They closed the garage door and they went home. I think they went to play actually, but then they went home. And I thought it was a joke and I was in on it. And then there was silence. I heard the thud of the garage door close and there was silence. And I realized I'm not part of this joke. And I got panicked, completely terrified. And I was screaming as loud as I could. And my mother heard a scream, but she didn't know what it was. She didn't think it was a child. It sounded like a cat to her. We
Mm.
had a lot of cats on our land. And so that would be normal to hear something. And so she went about her business. Well, as I was screaming, I saw three beautiful lights come and tell me to stop screaming. Of course, I didn't listen. I kept screaming. And the next thing I knew, I was at the bottom of the stairs. And I want to tell you, you said something about how they want us to reach our heart's desire. And I found that so profound when you said that, because I was at the bottom of a stairway of a Greco-Roman room. I didn't know what that was at the time. I can tell you the history of what I know now. And at the top in the center was this big circle. And I asked where I was there. And I asked where I was. And they said, you're in the room of heart's desires.
Mm.
And I said, do you answer all those? And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. And they proceeded to tell me more about that story. And the next thing I knew, I was seeing this beautiful golden path, and they were pavers, and I saw humans moving these pavers around. And they would go to these pyramids where the pavers were sitting and they'd pull from the bottom. And somehow I knew it was their life journey. And what happens when you pull from the bottom of a pyramid? You lose balance. And I watched them try to pave their path. And then they drop to their knees and they would say, um, please help me. For the love of God, help me. I don't know what I'm doing. My mother's going to die, or this is going to happen. Please help us. And I watched them come in and pull those pavers. and put them back to the bottom of the pyramid and go. And I say they meaning angels. And they went to the top of the pyramid and they pulled these pavers and started paving the path. And I said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "We are the pavers. You are not. You think you know what's best for you. We know what's best for you." So there's a long story behind all of that, which is obviously in my book because it's quite extensive. But in the room of heart's desires, I saw movement like DNA. It was as though every person's desire and prayers were moving together as one, yet they were separate. And it taught me that we were individualized, although we are all one, also individual. And we do have free will and we have different choices. And each choice we make opens a different kind of door. And through that door, we either have pain or love or light or happiness or, and so on. And that decides what expansion of our soul will take place. So that is why free will is so important. It is one of the most important parts of our journey. And I understood that somehow. When I came back, I didn't. Later in life, I went, "Oh my gosh, that's what they meant. Oh, that's what they meant." And I kept doing that throughout my life. And I recognized everything they had taught me. And so coming back from that, that's how I ended up ultimately becoming a medium, was that I saw spirits. And I saw so much more there. We could go for hours. I could tell you so much. But I just know at that moment, when I saw that movement, I knew that I was going to have a lot of choices and other people's free will was going to impact my free will, my choices, and my journey, because we were all moving together in this well. So I worked under Dr. Raymond Moody, who is Life After Life. And I actually studied under him, not worked under him, excuse me. And he shared with me some really interesting things about that well that I saw. And one of them is he felt that was the tunnel. I didn't know that, but he said, "I've heard it be called a well. I've heard it called many things, but that's what that was, but I didn't know it."
Wow. Oh my goodness. We have so much we need to dive into just from that.
I know. It's craziness. I know.
So, okay. How long were you stuck in the freezer for?
It's anywhere between 20 minutes and 2 hours. And I imagine it's somewhere in between.
Okay.
My mother said that she heard it 3 times and she had gone about her business for a long time. The last time she heard it was when she realized, "Oh my gosh, my baby's in the freezer."
So it was unplugged, so it wasn't cold, but there was no air coming in.
No air.
Okay. Wow. So, okay, we got to talk about this.
And
First of all,
actually,
the room of heart's desires.
I know.
This is so important because when you say that you saw that not everyone's desires were what's best for them, we're talking about from the human perspective, right? We're talking not from like with the soul who designed the path ahead of time, but the person here in the now who is conceiving and perceiving their reality, thinking, for instance, I can just simply use myself as an example. I dated a guy and I was like, "Oh, he's the one I want to marry." And then the room of heart's desires. "Oh, no, that is not the man that you want to marry."
Exactly. And it was human, and humans' words and prayers and thoughts and hopes and dreams, and then they were blending together.
Okay, so in the room of heart's desires, did you get any information about okay, you were talking about the pavers and how the angels are actually, altering where the pavers go and everything. Is there something that happens because if it's truly not meant for us, and of course, I feel like there's a percentage within there where you can be so stubborn as a human that you will override and go to the detriment of like your own path and choose something and possibly just because you're choosing to really learn a very difficult way. Because I believe that we have multiple options in different scenarios at all times, and they're constantly changing and upgrading and all of that kind of stuff. But in this room of heart of desires, did you see anything that um impacts, like how do they impact the soul to change the trajectory or change the path in a way that is still in alignment with the person's free will?
They put it in front of us. So I can't consider myself having the PhD of hardship. That's what I chose on this journey. I have, two mothers or two brothers and a mother who left this planet by their own means, and a lot of other very painful experiences in my journey. And I had a choice to make how I was going to handle those things. And it's that way with everything. What choice do we make today? So they give us the choices. I could have gone to victimization and stayed there. I could go to victimization and grow through it and expand. I could have left this planet myself from the trauma. Each individual time I had that choice to make, I could make that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I could grow and understand the process of what every individual needs to go through while they're in this realm, our consciousness here, let's say. So I feel like that was their way, was to put things in front of me that would help me heal. So when my second brother committed suicide, I had just adopted a little girl, and I had a choice to make. Do I go further with finalizing that adoption? She was a baby. Or do I let myself leave? Do I want to go further? Am I going to be able to handle it? Will I be mentally capable? Because this was the second one, right? And so it was I could see the doors coming in front of me, but when Spirit put her in front of me after the first time, my life changed. I wanted her so badly, and I craved her, and I loved her before she was even put in my arms.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was everything to me. And I can remember thinking, oh, I have to get over this. I just have to. Someone else may choose, I'm not going to get over this. This is going to, I had to work through it in order to be the mother I wanted to be. I had no option in my mind. But we do have a choice, don't we? I could have just said, I'm going to stay broken and
Yeah.
not heal.
Yeah.
And that would have affected my daughter and me and my husband and my next children that I adopted. So it would have been, the choice would have been, could be dark, could be in the middle, and could be light, I guess is how I want to put it.
Yeah.
And my soul expanded with any choice I made.
Mm-hmm.
My soul would expand.
Yeah. I think it brings me to think about the times where many of us have experienced where someone in our life just says the most random thing, and it was the very thing we needed to hear in that moment. And they had no idea. To them, it just seemed like just a casual sentence or phrase to just say to us, not realizing the impact of what it had. And that could be the very thing that, like you're saying, that was put in front of us, like spirit was channeled through that person without them even realizing it. And that could be another way that something was put in front of you.
Yes. And I think pain and joy are equal in value. They both teach us something.
Mm-hmm.
However, the pain is what we want to release ourselves from. So we're going to learn much quicker, and we're going to want to get out of it much faster. So it actually, I think, has taught me more, much more.
Yeah. Oh, pain. It's such an interesting teacher.
Well, thank God we have the joy with it, right?
I
In between
know.
it.
Well, the thing is too, that, when we understand that this universe operates in cycles, it doesn't operate in straight lines. That means that things are going to ebb and flow. And when we understand that and can accept that, we can ebb and flow through the joy and the pain and embrace the pain when it's there. And of course, the reaction to that is naturally to not, is to resist it. But like with all things, the more we resist something, the more it persists. And so it's part of that journey is embracing and understanding the power of pain, but also knowing it can be the catalyst to move through it as quickly as you are willing to allow it to move through you. It's, again, choice. It's so important. Every moment we have a choice, and it can change the reality that we're in dramatically and quickly. It's not something that is a fixed point in time that we have to just deal with. And there's no there's no changing it. We can ultimately be changing it at all times. But you also mentioned when you talked about the room of the heart's desires, also how you saw with the DNA and how everything's separate but also connected, that you also saw how other people were going to affect your choices and things like that. And I think this is a really important thing to talk about because we there are people in our lives that are going to impact the choices that we make.
Mhm.
And sometimes you can like really go over that with broad strokes and not really understand the ramifications of that, as well as the incredible opportunity that is there. And so the people that we choose to allow into our world, the people that we surround ourselves with, the people that we let be in our lives and impact us on perhaps a daily basis or a regular basis really is important. Like there is something to be said about how we're going to interact with this life by who we interact with.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. I have this little saying that you can't see the stars without the black drop of black. And so we need to have people in our lives also that aren't necessarily healed so that we recognize not only our own healing, but what we'd like to do differently. Everyone has a purpose on this planet, good, bad, and ugly. Whatever it is that their purpose is, I guess we find out as we interact with them. But we are all meant to intersect with each other for our own soul growth and our own sense of who we are. So if I don't have the black or the dark in front of me, I won't see my light. So I need to be able to see the dichotomy of
Contrast.
both. Yes, yes. And so sometimes there's people that come in my world that I think, oh, what am I doing? And then I recognize that everyone is at their own level of growth. And I was there once, maybe not in this lifetime, maybe in a different lifetime, but I know I was there. And so I have a lot of grace, but I also am self-protective. So I have learned to say, okay, this is not healthy for me right now. What would be? Is
Mm.
it walking away, which I don't like to do? Is it not engaging in that behavior? What is it that I need to do differently? I have this little saying, if someone else is my problem is me. And that's the good news because I can do something about that. If I'm not the problem, there's no solution. So I always have to look at what do I need to change? What do I need to do differently so that I'm not getting into the sickness or the unhealthy patterns with this person? Not what do they need to change because I can't change that.
Mm-hmm,
I'm
mm-hmm.
powerless. So I grow through that. Oh, I need to do this differently. And if I do this differently, maybe it's as simple as not engaging with someone who's a gossip. Let's just say that someone's a really bad gossip. I don't engage. If I engage, then I'm becoming just like that and I'm not liking myself. And so then I have to work on, self-love. And so it's always circling back to me, always. And when I recognize that, I heal through it and I do things differently.
Well, and it also goes to on the flip side, also how the way that you choose to operate in this world and hold yourself and act through your own volition also is impacting other people. And so
Yes,
as you do your own healing and make different choices for yourself that are elevating your ability to experience the world in a much bigger, grander way than the limitations that we kind of really start off with, or inherit, as we go through the journey, you get to show to others. Others are impacted just through the observation or just being around you. Again, it's not that you're purposely trying to change anyone. It's just that through your own existence, you impact others around you.
exactly. And I believe that that is the means and the way of how they created us, quite
Mm-hmm.
honestly. If we don't have others, we might as well be robots and act the same and or not come here with others. We wouldn't need to intersect with anyone. We would be soul and alone. The only time we are individualized completely is in grief.
Mm,
Grief is an individual thing. Grief is a lonely place to be, and it's a place for the most intensive of growth, right? So, for me, we're meant to interact. We're meant to have that so that we can have a reason to expand, because without interaction, there's nothing. We're
Yeah,
just
no,
floating
and
through it.
this is another reason why, of course, there's always moments where we need to go inward and really tune out the
Mhm.
entire everyone else's voices, everyone else's opinions, everyone else's experience, and really just focus on our own. That is absolutely necessary. But there's also time for reintegration and for taking everything that we learn and integrating into the world, into the community, into the people that we are surrounding ourselves with. And it's part of the growth period as well. So it,
Yes.
for everyone who tends to get a little too comfortable in isolation, you are limiting yourself from the growth that also occurs once you've done. And this is another thing is like the universe is constantly like the polarities are constantly like working off one another. Like you're going to always pendulate between one, you'll never be able to stay in the center for very long. It almost never even really, it's so momentary. It almost is like a blink, right? But it's okay. Some of us think that the whole point is to get into that state of neutrality, that place of stillness, but it's not. It's the universe is constantly working itself like from one polarity to the other. It's how energy moves, right? In that waveform. And so even when we look at the
Mhm.
yin yang symbol, it's a wave, that's kind of going. And so this is how we naturally are meant to move. So yes, you can go into a little bit of the inner world, but then you have to engage with the outer world, and you can go into the inner world and then the outer world. And you can't
Mhm.
stop that flow, because if you stop that flow, you're not working with the natural energies and how they work, which is going to cause stagnation. It's going to cause issues, which will present themselves
Exactly.
for growth opportunities in your life anyway.
Exactly. I always think of a clock like a grandfather clock with the pendulum. If you keep it in the center, it does nothing. It
Hmm.
doesn't move, it doesn't ding, it doesn't tell time, it does nothing. And yes, it may be balanced and it might not tip over, but it does nothing else. But when the pendulum starts moving, everything starts moving.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's the way of the world
Yes, yes, yes.
and our
It's
soul and our journey.
very interesting. It's also interesting. So I would like to know, when did your mediumship really come through then? So you had this NDE at like 4.5 years old. Um, did that really awaken your gifts more so when you came back? And were you able to let them flourish, or were they shut down again? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I remember being the only thing I think I remember, really remember at being around 3 years old, was that when animals would cross, I would see them float. And
Oh.
I didn't think anything. I thought that was normal. So I know the fact that my mother and brother and sister had some of this gift, that I had inherited it. But it was very minimal. I was so young, and I don't know where it would have gone. When I came back from the experience and everything that I saw, I would look around the room and I'd see spirits everywhere. They were looking in my window, they were under my bed, corner of the room, down the hallway. I was terrified. I thought they were the boogeyman. And
Mm.
I would cover my head with the blankets and say, go away, but they didn't. They were always there. Ultimately, I ended up playing with them. My family called it the creepy room, because I'd go into the living room and I'd talk to things that weren't there. And I would play house and I'd play, Beatles, and I'd do all the, things little kids do. And they would play with me. And then I'd realize, oh my gosh, nobody's here. There's no, there's nothing else going on here. And I would get scared and they'd go away, they'd back away. So it was kind of a give and take with them, trying to teach me that they were there and I was safe.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward, they just kept coming. They'd wake me up and say, hey, I just died. And I'd say, go away. And they'd say, no, you're going to hear that so-and-so's best friend's sister died, and it's me. And this is what happened. And I didn't do it purposely, or whatever the question might come to me. And then I'd say, okay. And I'd write it down. And then the next day I'd get the phone call. And I would say, oh, I had a message last night. And people would be really stunned by it because I knew what happened.
Mm.
And that just kept occurring and occurring. I ended up being a grief and addiction therapist, trying to use that work without getting caught. Because
Okay,
when
yeah.
I
So
was
like on the
young, they would have,
DL.
yeah, they would have locked me up. That would have been the end of it. And so I was really afraid. So I didn't want to share it. And my mother had told me not to. So she didn't really shut it down, but she made me fearful of being open with it. And
Okay.
actually, until about 20 years ago, I didn't let anybody know unless I was close to them. I would help people when they'd come to me or they'd send someone to me, but I had been close to them to let them know I could do this. And I was afraid. And then one day I just decided I was going to tell everyone that I was a medium. And let me tell you, I was attacked. I was called, devil's work and, evil. And I kept saying, but healing can't be evil. I help people heal. I don't understand. I couldn't get my brain around. I still am very kind. And I didn't understand cruelty in the world at all. It didn't resonate with me in any form. And go from there. I just kept, sharing and giving. And before I knew it, people were saying, I went to this lady for grief and she knew how my mom died, or she knew that my dad was on the other side and had alcoholism or whatever that case may be. And they started sending other people and it just grew from there.
Oh, wow. And so did your brothers and your mother come to you after they passed?
My father did. My mother was, yeah, it was too painful.
Okay.
My second brother, I did not see him at all, and I've only seen him once, maybe twice through someone else.
Okay.
My first brother that died, yes, he actually came. I didn't. He committed his act, and I hate to say it that way because I know it was his savior. It was his saving grace and his journey. But I know that what I heard was my brother used to call my name by going, Susan. And I was downstairs and my husband was upstairs in bed and I heard that. And I ran up the stairs as fast as I could and jumped in bed. It scared me. And then I went to sleep. I didn't want anything to do with it. And the next night I heard Susan, and I looked to my left and I saw my brother standing there. I thought he was there to hurt me. I didn't know why he was there. And I went to fear because I'd been woken up. And so, you go right to what's going on. And he left. I told him to go away and he left. I was having he passed away on my birthday. So I was having my birthday stuff going on so I could keep busy. And I didn't have to think about it. That last night, he came to the end of my bed and I looked and I said, Terry. And he said, yes. And he pulled me from my body. I was wide awake. And he took me back to the yellow brick road. That's what I call the golden path because I understood the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
So it's always been the yellow brick road.
Okay.
And he took me back there and he showed me some things. And one of the things he showed me was my mom and dad arguing over him. And they were in a garage. And I didn't think that was happening, but it actually was. When I talked to my mom, it was happening that night. And because they couldn't reach him. So they got kind of in a, he's a grown up, that kind of thing. And my brother, my father said something that wasn't kind. And my brother said, I never have to feel this way again. And I thought, that's strange. And then the next thing you know, I'm on this golden path. And he shared with me some beautiful things. And I saw angels. And when the angels are in the room, when they open their mouths, they're singing and speaking at the same time. The words and the music come out together, almost like a radio or on a record. That's why music is so healing to our soul. They created it. And I understood that. And my brother, was telling me that, he was going to leave and it wasn't my fault. And, I've been gone since your birthday and I want you to know that was my love for you. So I wanted to make sure you never forgot me, which of course I never would have forgotten him. And then I asked him, have you seen God? And he said, I have to go. And I go, wait, have you seen God? And he goes, I have to leave now. And he turned around and it was almost like, that Michael Jackson movie where the floor lights up as he's walking. Yes. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it was a video or, for one of his music videos. And I watched the floor start to light up as he was walking closer and closer to where he was going. And I could see that beautiful bright light that I saw. And this amazing feeling came over me and I knew where I was. And that's called a shared death experience, by the way. And Dr. Moody is actually studying that right now. And I think he just wrote a book on it. It's very common all over the world. And I didn't know that at the time. And I could never understand how that happened. But when I did hospice work, it started happening all the time to me. So my gift just kept growing and growing and growing. And I just went with it because I didn't have an option. I used to tell it to go away. It wouldn't go away. They weren't going to give me what I wanted. They were going to give me what I needed. And I needed to step into that because I think I had an inherent need to help others. And I was already working on my own codependency and things like that. So I didn't want to help others because I thought it would be very codependent. And what I learned from that is we don't do for others what they can and should do for themselves. However, we can help them as long as we're not doing it for them. And so I was able to expand that and begin helping others in a more vibrant, extensive way. And it just kept flowing, just kept flowing.
Wow. I I do want to say I think it's really important for my audience to understand that you chose around, like, I guess the age of 45, in your mid 40s, to kind of come out to the world as a medium, and then started your career in that sense and really allowed that to flourish. And I think it's important for anyone to know that there is no particular age where you're
Mhm.
behind you're behind the eight ball, or you've wasted time, or it's all perfect. Like, don't let your age, wherever you're falling in this spectrum of age right now of life, hinder or slow you down or make you think like, oh, it's too late. Like, it's never too late. There's so much life to live here. And I do believe that the more that we are in alignment with our purpose and sharing our gifts with the world, actually, I believe it starts to reverse our aging process in a way, because we're constantly in connection with the flow. We're constantly in connection with the energy that is fueling us to be our best version of ourselves. So we're
Exactly.
not fighting the thing that, really wants to emerge. So, like, I feel like you waste, not waste, I don't want to, you expend so much energy that starts to age you, or is like, just go with the flow. Just ride the wave.
Yes.
You don't need to swim against the current, And so
Yeah.
oftentimes I feel like that really does keep us younger. I think for me, I feel like I started to really kind of come out with my own intuition and talking about this around the age of 39, and I'm now 47, and I feel like I've also started to, like, reverse some of that aging process.
Hmm.
um Not, I can say it, sure, physically, but I feel it in my heart more than anything. Like, I feel like my heart feels younger, my soul feels younger, like my desires are more, I don't know, they're more vibrant. And I think that's all in alignment with the fact that, okay, I'm going with the flow now. I don't have to work so hard.
Right. And joy does that too.
Hmm.
Joy is such a great motivator for youth. Think about someone who's 80 and
Hmm.
they are like a 60-year-old or a 50-year-old. They're so
Yeah.
packed with joy, and you watch them and they're buzzing around the house, and they're ready to get into everything and try everything and experience. And then think of someone 80 who has been broken, and they keep saying, I'm so old, I'm sick, I'm going to die soon, and my life is over. I should have done this, I should have done that. And that's the perfect example of that. So, I'm going to be 65 in a couple of weeks, and I really think about, well, yes, it's hard to turn 65 because I'm going to have less life on the planet. That's why I love being here and learning. I love it. I know I'll be back because I love
Hmm.
it so much. But I also know that I'm meant to enjoy and be young and vibrant. And that's what I want to be. And I allow that to come in because I am aligned with the spirit world and my life purpose. And
Hmm.
life purpose and soul purpose are very different.
Hmm.
Life purpose is what we do in our journey. We help people, we buy homes, we get married, we, bury people, we birth people, and that's our life purpose. And our soul purpose is, there's one soul purpose that I always try to bring to people's attention when I'm on a podcast, and that is, it's called self-love. So, you hear that saying that you can't love anyone else if you don't love yourself. And I say nonsense. I think we're brought here innately able to love others. It's ourselves that we're so hard on. It's ourselves that we are always damaging and um, and finding fault in. And so the goal is to have self-love, and that takes the lifetime and more
Hmm.
and more. For
Hmm.
every mistake we make, we are hard on ourselves. So we have to learn in this journey to have that self-love. And self-love creates youth. It creates joy. It creates happiness. It all comes together when we can love ourselves and we become aligned with our journey and our soul path.
Yeah. And I think also the motivations of loving others comes from a much more healed space when you learn to love yourself. So the love that you're offering others is of a different nature, love like
Mhm.
level, and it flows in a different way. And I think that, you know, obviously it's easy. You don't need self-love to look a little puppy and or, you know, a baby
Right. That's what I'm
and love
saying.
that. But you also have to understand that sometimes we are motivated to love others so that that we'll feel loved, you know, or that we
Yes.
need that love. And so by filling that void that we feel within ourselves by fueling it with our own self-love, then that just allows for the love that we offer others to come from a different motivation, which is felt by others, by the way, and it changes the dynamic of the relationship. That it could be subtle in some cases, or it could be quite
Profound.
profound. Yes, but you know, before we get to the end of the podcast, we got to talk about your new book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. It's coming out on July 16th. What was the deep inspiration for writing this particular book?
It's kind of strange, honestly. I'm not a writer, or I wasn't. And
That's she who's
I
writing another book.
right, I know. I know. My editors keep telling me you are now.
Yeah.
But I was not then. And I kept hearing, you're going to write a book someday and you're going to help people with it. And I thought, I'm not going to write a book. That's not my goal. And it's not something I'm going to do. But I always heard it. And about 2 years ago,
There, that's
I
coming
was,
from the room of hearts of desire, the
yes,
desire of the heart.
exactly. Absolutely. I was in my kitchen and I heard, it's time to write your book. And I thought, are you crazy? I literally said those words, and they said it again. It's time. It's now. And I called my people and I said, stop everything. Don't book anybody else. I'm going to write a book. And they said, what are you talking about? And I could hear the panic in their voices. What are you talking about? And I said, no, it's time for me to write a book. And I wrote the book within 6 months.
Mm.
And it was so in depth. I couldn't believe I was done with that, writing it. That's why I wanted to write a second book, because I loved it so much. And the next thing I knew, I had a literary agent in New York. I don't know how that happened. It just fell, well, I know how it happened, but
Hmm.
it fell into my lap. And the next thing I know, Hay House is buying it. And I was blown away. I couldn't believe it. I kept saying, but I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. I'm not. And they kept saying, but you are. And your book is wonderful. And I know that came completely, it was all inspired by spirit.
Mm. So, if we were to kind of just pull a teaser out of the book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, because based off of what we've been kind of chatting about today, is there anything that you like to kind of tease the audience with that they'll find from reading this book?
They're going to find their connection. So it's learning to release fear, to harness your intuition. It's learning to connect to the spirit world and recognize when they're there. It's got exercises and integration moments on every chapter to learn how to expand and grow. It is about the pure love of spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It is so vast. It covers so many areas. It's about everything we talked about. It talks about my journey and what I saw and experienced, what it all meant, and what it means for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so powerful. It has, I mean, I know they wrote it. I know it because it's
Was
just,
there a lesson in there that came through that you were like, oh, or a teaching or an exercise that you're like, oh, I never thought of that? Or was there something that surprised you in any capacity of what came through that, you know, you wouldn't have necessarily put into the book yourself?
I think for me, it was that I was created with love, in love, and not just, oh, I love you. I was created, and we are created love. We are the creation of love. And once we know that, we can offer that to others. And that was shocking to me. I was surprised by that because I'd never thought about that. I never thought outside that box of, I mean, I knew we had love, but we actually are love. Everything about us, was created singularly just for you.
Mhm.
So your hair is only yours. Your nose is only yours. Your eyes, everything physically about you and everything internally is different than the next. My heart pumps different than yours. Yes, it pumps, but maybe mine skips a beat. Maybe mine, goes slower, faster. We are different in every way because they created us individually, singularly, and yet as a whole. And that was mind blowing to me.
I love that. And it's just a reminder of the purity that resides within each and every one of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Susan. Thank you so much. I want to give you the opportunity. I know you've got some book signings coming up in the LA area. Let my audience know the details of that. And then, of course, more details about when they can get your book, where they can get it, and if they want to reach out to you and get in contact with you.
Okay. Well, if they go to my website, susangrau.com, there's a pop-up that comes that takes them to a landing page to buy the book. And once they do that, they can enter that receipt and they are given 13 months, once a month of Zoom with me as a group. And we're going to go through each chapter. So it's all only for pre-sale. Right now it's on pre-sale, but it does come out July 16th. My book signings, the first one I have is, I think, the 20th, and it's at Irvine Spectrum in California, in Orange County. And my next one will be, I think it's October, if I remember right. Everybody keeps track for me, but it's October at the Grove in Los Angeles. And then there's some in between that. We'll be announcing them on my social media, which is Susan Grau Official. And I'm hoping that people buy it pre-sale so they can join us in that Zoom, but they also will get an ebook download that I wrote. It's a small ebook, but it's pretty cool. It's nice. I like it. Talks about harnessing your intuition and understanding your fear and releasing it, and some other things so that you get used to understanding your internal being, because intuition's internal and mediumship's external. It's a different vibration. So learning both, is what I'm trying to teach. And that's it, really. I do a lot of podcasts and I love them. And this has been an amazing podcast. I'm so grateful to you. You have so much spiritual knowledge. I'm in shock. I sat here kind of in awe listening to anything, and I'd like to sound like that right now.
Oh,
you really, I mean that sincerely. You have so much knowledge, and I'm blessed to be on this with you because that means something to me. It's huge to me.
Oh.
And so I'm grateful. That's it, really.
Thank you. Thank you. I will receive all of that tremendously. And I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story with everyone, and also your knowledge of what you saw. I think that understanding the room of the heart's desires is extremely important for people to understand in their own journey, and why things come up, and why things are put in front of them, perhaps, and just kind of can help them clarify also like when that moment might be happening for them in that time, and really understand like, oh, this is an opportunity. Like, this is my sign, like, just keep going, or, like, choose this and things may turn around, or, it'll give you more strength, or it'll give you more time, or whatever it might be. So I think that's really important. I really enjoyed listening to your story and the wisdom that you shared here with the audience. So thank you very much. And to my audience, I'm going to leave all the links for you in the show notes below, whether you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on any of our podcast platforms. Thank you so much. Please leave a review for this episode and let us know what you thought. And also, don't forget that I have my Forbidden Journey retreat coming up in September 18th, during the Pisces lunar eclipse. Colorado, Breckenridge, Colorado. I will be hosting my third retreat for absolute soul metamorphosis. If you're interested in coming, I'm going to leave the link to sign up for a potential ticket to the retreat. I'd love to have you there. And of course, if you need any more information, you can email me, Nicole@NicoleFrolick.com, or if you need to book a session with me, all the links are down below. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for your continued support, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks again for joining me for another show on the Enlighten Up podcast. I love you guys so much for all of your continued support. So remember to raise your vibe, find your tribe, and be open to the infinite possibilities held in the mysteries that surround us all. Thanks again for sharing the show with your family and friends. And if you're new to the show and you need to find out more information about me, please head on over to my website, NicoleFrolick.com, where you can join my newsletter. And please follow me on Instagram, Telegram, and YouTube. Keep your light bright, and I'll see you next week.